You know, I found this table on the side of the road. It's even falling apart.
It took me like 40 minutes to haul it back.
Alright, so there's going to be quite a few drawings on this page right here. So this is going to take a little bit longer than normal, but it's nothing compared to the next page. Next page is going to be the bottomless pit. That's going to be a pretty big drawing.
Just a little water break.
Okay, so now that I have everything laid out, let's go ahead and start weathering the page. And I'm thinking this one's going to need quite a few coats. So this is going to be the first coat right here. Then we can go ahead and dry the page. Let's go ahead and add the second layer. And I'm hoping to get a really nice orangey brown color. But I also want to keep in mind that the page prior, that duck page, also needs to match, at least the color wise. So I don't want to stray too far away from that. Here I'm going to be adding the third layer. And the third layer is mostly going to consist of all like the stains on the page. After that, I'm going to go ahead and start adding all the white highlights to the drawing. There's going to be a lot of working pieces on this page, so it's going to be very easy to lose things here. And because there's so many drawings on this one page, I'm going to have to use a couple different variations of line weight here, varying from that 005 all the way to that 08. For the cow, I'm going to be using a 08 for the outline because it's going to be the biggest drawing on the page. And for all those hatch marks, I'm going to be coming in with a smaller pen. That way the cross hatching can be very visible. Because for this one, it looks like it was scratched in, so I want to keep that messy look to it. And then to further darken it, just a little bit of gouache paint on top with a little extra highlights. Now the cow does look a little on the dark side, but once we start darkening up the other drawings and finishing up the weathering on this page, it'll look a lot nicer. For those footprints on top, just a little bit of gouache paint only on one side of it, and that'll make them look like it has a little depth to it. And for the actual question quails, very light wash on top of it. We're going to mostly focus on a lot of that cross hatching. That's going to be what carries this drawing. And then very similar to the cow, we're just going to add a little bit of gouache paint on top, and that'll darken up all those blacks. And then because we want all the drawings to look consistent from one page to the other, I'm going to also include a little bit of highlight on each one of these drawings. And the quails don't really need too much on them. They're fairly simple drawing. So now that we have that done, let's go ahead and work our way down the page. And using my regular pen, I'm going to go ahead and draw in those symbols. And I do want to keep a rough look to these. I want them to look like they're really scratched in. Very similar to when I added the gouache paint, I'm only going to be outlining half of the footprints right here. This will also add on to that depth of that drawing. I'm going to work on that little tentacle in the center. And I'm going to have to use a really thin pen for this one right here. I'm thinking my best bet is going to be using a number 02 pen. That'll give me good flexibility to be able to add in all the little small details. If I tried using something like my regular pen, those lines would just kind of bleed into each other really easily. And then for the octopus, I'm also thinking a 02 pen would be my best bet right here. Especially areas like that eye is going to be really small, so I really need these fine lines in there. And then I'm going to come back around with a little bit of white acrylic, and that's because a lot of these pieces are getting lost very easily, so all the whites are just going to help keep it together. And because I used the red Sharpie for the page prior, I'm going to go ahead and use that same red Sharpie right here. This is a very similar symbol as that duck page right here, so I'm also going to keep these lines really thin just to match them. And then let's go ahead and work on the next part, and the next part is going to be the woodpecker pecker. And I'm going to have to probably use a smaller pen right here, and I'm going to be using anywhere from that 005 all the way to that 02. Once I finish with the drawing there, I'm going to go ahead and come back with some gouache paint. And I'm thinking maybe about 2 more layers right here. And that's just so that we can have a much darker look right there. Just going to go ahead and dry that page. And then afterwards we should be good to start adding all the words. Now for this part, I'm going to want to use my regular pen.
I thought that was an eye.
Because the drawings have a much more sketched out look, I'm going to assume that this whole drawing was done out in the field.
What are the odds I did it twice?
So I want to keep a really rough look to those titles. And because the previous page has much smaller text, this page I'm also going to want to have that smaller text added. That'll just visually help these 2 pages look cohesive with one another. Once you flip the page, it's easier to have a different look to it, but when they're next to each other, it's much easier to have them look the same.
I don't know why, but I really like how this art block came out. Easily a 10 out of 10.